The morning I discovered Karen's $80,000 Mercedes blocking my father's medical transport, I knew immediately that sleek white SUV was about to vanish forever. And to top it off, she would practically beg me to take it. Imagine this, it's 6 o'clock a.m., my dad's wheelchair-accessible van is honking, and he's about to miss his dialysis appointment. Meanwhile, Karen sips her skinny latte from her kitchen window, smiling at our predicament. That smile. It cost her everything: her car, her house, her freedom. And wait until you hear what her husband did when he found out. What would you do if your HOA president made your life a nightmare? Drop your worst HOA story below. I'm gathering them for my lawyer. Where are you watching from? Texas, Florida. Because if you've got an HOA, you need to know the 3 laws I used to legally destroy Karen. Trust me, after 47 blocked driveways, revenge tastes even better than you'd expect. Let me tell you how this suburban war started. Karen Whitmore Stanton didn't just stumble into my life. She zeroed in on it like a missile aimed at my happiness. I'm Marcus Castellano, 45. A construction contractor who made the cosmic error of inheriting my grandmother's house in Pine Valley Estates. Grandma Rosa was a legend. In '92, she fought the formation of the whole with the fury of 1,000 Italian mothers, calling it legalized extortion by fascist board members. I miss her wisdom every day. 3 months ago, I moved in with my pregnant wife, Deborah, who was 8 months along and still teaching 4th grade because teachers are tougher than Navy SEALs, and my father, Anthony, a Vietnam vet who's been wheelchair-bound since a construction accident triggered old shrapnel wounds. This man helped build half of Phoenix before his spine gave out. All he needed was a simple ramp to visit his grandkids. Then came Karen Whitmore Stanton, the human embodiment of an HOA violation, technically legal, but morally bankrupt. I remember it clearly, day 3 after moving in, with the diesel fumes from the moving truck still lingering in the air. This 5-foot-tall tornado of suburban fury clicked across my driveway in $800 heels, leaving a trail of perfume strong enough to violate the Geneva Convention. She pointed at my dad's temporary wheelchair ramp as if it were a crime scene, declaring it needed architectural approval. Her iPad case matched her coral cardigan, which matched her Mercedes, which matched her so-called white, and overpriced. I explained that my dad needed the ramp, but she tapped away at her iPad, announcing that the committee would meet in 6 to 8 weeks. She smiled, the kind of smile that makes sharks nervous. I'm sure he can manage until then, she said. That night, my dad tried the stairs and nearly cracked his skull when his arms gave out. By 7 o'clock a.m., I was rebuilding the ramp with every power tool I owned. At 7:15, a $500 fine appeared on my door, the paper still warm from her printer, reeking of entitlement and toner. What I didn't know at the time was that Karen wasn't just some bored housewife playing dictator. She was a real estate agent who had turned our HOA into her personal lead generation machine. Her white Mercedes GLS 450, with its rules for me vanity plate, was a mobile advertisement for her power. She lived in the McMansion directly across from me, a 6,000-square-foot monument to bad taste, positioned perfectly to monitor my every violation. Her husband, Richard, owned Stanton Construction, my biggest competitor. I wouldn't realize the connection until she had already cost me $40. 0 in lost contracts. Karen had a system honed over 8 years of presidential tyranny. Apply just enough pressure to break you, but without leaving any fingerprints, enforce the rules selectively. Like a sniper picking off targets. Document everything in triplicate while violating federal mail laws. She thought she was untouchable, protected by Robert's Rules of Order and a wine-drunk board that voted in lockstep because she controlled their property values like a suburban puppet master. But what Karen didn't know was that she had just declared war on the grandson of Rosa Castellano, the woman who once got a city councilman recalled for trying to zone her tomato garden as commercial agriculture. I inherited more than Grandma's rundown house. I inherited her Sicilian temper, her file cabinet of neighborhood secrets, and her absolute intolerance for bullies, especially those in coral cardigans and too much white diamonds perfume. Game on, Karen. You just didn't know you'd already lost. 2 weeks later, Karen declared war on my livelihood with a smile sweeter than cyanide. I was loading my F-250 at dawn when she appeared beside me like the devil in beige polyester, clutching her iPad like a weapon of mass destruction. "Marcus," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern, "we need to discuss your commercial vehicle situation." The way she said commercial made it sound like hazardous waste. According to the emergency whole meeting held while I was pouring concrete across town. Funny how emergencies always happen when I'm gone. All commercial vehicles now required screening from Street View within 30 days. Daily fines, $100. My work truck, the one that fed my family and paid my mortgage, was apparently a visual terrorist attacking property values. "I'm sure you can make room in your garage," she suggested, knowing damn well it was already full of my dad's medical equipment and wheelchair van. Woman's perfume cloud was so thick I could taste it. The envelope was wrinkled and smeared. "Someone's been reading our mail," he said. "Look at the adhesive, steamed and reapplied in numb. If spies used this technique, we'd have shot them on the spot." That's when it hit me. Karen knew our schedules, appointments, and everything else because she was intercepting our mail. I had read about this kind of thing in some HOA horror story online. Mail theft is a federal crime, punishable by 5 years in prison, but proving it required more than just Dad's sharp eye for detail. The weekend turned me into a suburban spy. Amazon dropped off a magnetic GPS tracker that could withstand anything short of a nuclear blast. I set up a hidden camera, cleverly disguised as a landscape light, HOA approved, and aimed directly at our mailbox. The trap was set, a fake appointment letter from Johnson Medical Group for Tuesday at 2 p.m., placed enticingly in the mailbox like cheese for a particularly entitled rat. Monday's footage was a masterpiece. At 6:00 a.m., Karen, dressed in her $300 yoga outfit, photographed our mail before pocketing the medical decoy entirely. I remembered my cousin Tony once telling me that federal prosecutors loved mail theft cases. They were slam dunks with mandatory minimum sentences, and suddenly, it felt like Christmas had come early. On Tuesday at 1:45 p.m., her Mercedes blocked my driveway with the precision of atomic decay. I let her bask in her smugness for 20 minutes before I approached, phone in hand, recording. "I need to leave for my appointment," I said sweetly. Her smirk could have soured milk. "What appointment?" she asked. I held up an identical envelope, same one that had disappeared from my mailbox the day before, now sitting in her passenger seat between Starbucks cups and HOA violation forms. Watching her face crumble was more satisfying than a pay-per-view fight. As she scrambled for excuses, I bent down to attach my note to her bumper. At the same time, the GPS tracker clicked into place, a satisfying sound like a loaded shotgun. "Drive safe, Karen. Expired tags can be costly, don't you think?" Her registration sticker was 6 months out of date, something I'd noticed while she was busy violating federal law. She sped off, like a teenager caught smoking, leaving a trail of rubber and the acrid stench of burnt entitlement. That GPS tracker became my window into Karen's criminal behavior. Over the next week, I tracked her Mercedes regularly parking in handicapped spots, fire lanes, and at the DMV, where, thanks to public records, I discovered her license had been suspended following a DUI last year. The woman who'd been citing us for violations was driving illegally all over town. Like a health inspector suffering from food poisoning, my contractor friend had warned me about. People like her, the loudest enforcers of rules, are usually the biggest rule breakers. It's all projection, pure and simple. One day, while Karen was busy terrorizing the Patel family over their rose bushes, I got a glimpse inside her car. The glove compartment was overflowing with tickets, court summons, and final notices. Empty wine bottles hid under designer handbags, and the entire interior smelled like bad decisions and cheap wine. This wasn't just hypocrisy, it was ammunition. Every citation she'd issued while driving on a suspended license was legally invalid. One day, while Karen was busy terrorizing the Patel family over their rose bushes, I got a glimpse inside her car. The glove compartment was overflowing with tickets, court summons, and final notices. Empty wine bottles hid under designer handbags, and the entire interior smelled like bad decisions and cheap wine. This wasn't just hypocrisy, it was ammunition. Every citation she'd issued while driving on a suspended license was legally invalid. Karen's nuclear option detonated on a Tuesday morning when a white van marked Adult Protective Services pulled into my driveway. The social worker, a weary-looking woman clutching a clipboard like a lifeline, explained that someone had reported serious concerns about an elderly veteran living in unsafe conditions. Of course, it was an anonymous tip, but I could smell Karen's perfume on this attack from across the street, where she pretended to water her dead petunias while watching the drama unfold. Dad handled the inspection with military calm until they asked about his medication. That's when something snapped. "My boy takes better care of me than the VA ever did," he said, his voice shaking, his hands trembling not from age, but from fury, mixed with the flashbacks. "I didn't survive Tet to be treated like a child." He stopped, jaw clenched, as the social worker took photos of his living space like a crime scene. That night, his PTSD nightmares returned for the first time in years. I heard him calling for his squad at 3 a.m., trapped in a jungle that existed only in memory and Karen's cruelty. 2 days later, Deborah called me from her classroom, sobbing. Deborah's voice was trembling so much I could barely understand her. "Marcus, someone reported me to CPS. They said I was putting our baby in danger, driving recklessly. They pulled me out of class in front of my students." Me, a pregnant woman who's never had a speeding ticket, was interrogated about my ability to be a mother because Karen supposedly followed me to work, taking photos of me going 28 in a 25 zone. The stress caused Deborah's blood pressure to skyrocket, and her doctor put her on immediate bed rest. That night, she went into false labor again, and I spent 6 hours in there, wondering if Karen's grudge would cost us our baby. That's when I discovered Karen's mistake. She had gotten too confident and sloppy. Hospital security pulled me aside and showed me surveillance footage from the parking garage. There was Karen's Mercedes tailing Deborah's car for 20 minutes, lurking like a designer-clad stalker. The security chief, a former Marine who'd bonded with my dad during his visits, handed me a DVD copy and said, "You might want to file a restraining order." This looks like harassment to me. But I had bigger plans than just a restraining order. It was time to do some research. My network of contractors runs deep in this city. We build houses, we fix problems, and we know everyone's business. 3 phone calls revealed Karen's history. 5 different addresses in 10 years, each time leaving after neighborhood disputes. Tommy from Elite Plumbing knew her from Scottsdale. She had the HOA president arrested for embezzlement, then took over. A year later, she was gone, and $40,000 was missing from the HOA account. Mike the electrician had worse stories. In Willow Creek, she reported 6 families to CPS before someone proved she was making false reports. She fled before any charges were filed. The pattern was as clear as day. Karen was a serial neighborhood terrorist. But the real gold came from Ethel during our weekly intel exchange in the produce aisle. "Did you know Karen owes the whole $47,000? Ethel whispered over the bananas. "She calls it a president exemption. Hasn't paid dues in 8 years, but fines everyone else for being a day late." Ethel's nephew worked at the title company and pulled records showing Karen's house had 3 liens and a pending foreclosure notice. The real estate agent lecturing us about property values was drowning in debt and using HOA funds as her personal piggy bank. That night, our kitchen became a war room. Dad, fueled by righteous anger, had connected with other victims through the VA Center. It turned out Karen had targeted 3 other veteran families. From her bed rest, Deborah created a Facebook group that gained 50 members in 2 hours. Victims of Karen became a support group and intel network. The Patel family shared how Karen had reported their Hindu decorations as gang symbols. The Johnsons revealed she had called the health department on their daughter's lemonade stand. Even the quiet Korean family posted videos of Karen screaming about their ethnic cooking smells. Every story painted the same picture, a bigot with power abusing it to torment anyone who was different. The CPS investigator came back that week, and I was ready. His name was Jim Martinez, a Vietnam vet with eyes that had seen too much injustice. When he saw Dad's service medals and heard about the PS harassment, something shifted in his expression. "I've seen this pattern before," he said quietly. "False reporters targeting military families, minorities, anyone vulnerable. It's predatory." He handed me his card with his personal cell number on the back. "When you nail her and you will call me. I'll testify about the false reports. People like her make our job harder and hurt real victims." As he left, he paused at the door. "Your dad reminds me of my sergeant. Take care of him, and take her down." The pieces were falling into place like dominoes: financial fraud, mail theft, false reports, stalking, civil rights violations. Karen had built an empire of crime, thinking her HOA throne made her untouchable. She didn't know about our growing alliance, the documented evidence, or that her precious annual HOA gala was just 3 weeks away. The same gala where she worked for real estate clients, played queen to potential buyers, and where her reputation meant more than her fake designer bags. Ethel had secured 3 invitations for us, and I had contractor friends who specialized in audio-visual installations. Karen loved the spotlight. We were about to make sure she got one she'd never forget. The breakthrough came at 2 a.m. on a sleepless Thursday, as I pored over HOA documents like a detective on a mission. Deep in subsection 47C of our insurance policies, I found what I was looking for. The kind of dense, legal jargon crafted to make sure no one would bother reading it. But then, I found the golden nugget that would end Karen's reign. My hands actually trembled as I read it 3 times, making sure I wasn't imagining things. According to the HOA's own automotive policy, any vehicle on HOA common property could be towed if it met 3 criteria: blocking emergency access, being unregistered or uninsured, or presenting a safety risk. The kicker was that Karen's driveway, the concrete pad where her Mercedes had sat like a throne, wasn't actually her property. A surveyor's mistake in 2003 had placed her driveway 6 feet into HOA common area, a slip-up no one noticed because who checks surveys after construction? Karen had been illegally parking on community property for 15 years, while she had been fining others for infractions that didn't even exist. I called Rodrigo at dawn, my best friend since high school, who now owned Rodriguez's Recovery, the top towing company in the county. "Herman Manor, you wake?" I asked. "For you." He replied, "Always." "What's the target?" When I told him the situation, his laugh was pure joy. "The white Mercedes. The one whose owner called my truck's visual pollution at the city council meeting." "Oh, this is destiny, brother. Everything by the book, legal as Sunday church." The beauty of it was in its simplicity. State law said that vehicles with suspended registration on public property could be immediately impounded. HOA bylaws, the ones Karen had written herself in her power-drunk state, stated that the board president must enforce all rules equally, without exception. She had created a legal trap and stepped into it every day. With her suspended license, expired registration, and illegal parking, Karen's Mercedes was a tow truck's dream. But the revelation went deeper. The surveyor's mistake meant Karen had been collecting HOA violation fines while breaking HOA rules herself more egregiously than anyone else. Every fine she had issued while parked illegally could be challenged. Every board meeting she had conducted from her hypocritical position was grounds for a lawsuit. I felt like an archaeologist who had just discovered a treasure trove of legal gold. Dad listened to my explanation over his morning coffee, his tactical mind instantly grasping the strategy. "It's like she built a minefield and forgot her own map," he mused. "Pride before the fall, boy. Same in war, same in HOA letters." Deborah, still on bed rest but sharp as ever, added a crucial point: the gala. "She'll park there for sure, probably in a fire lane for her grand entrance. Maximum witnesses, maximum humiliation." The HOA gala was Karen's annual crowning event, where she mingled with potential real estate clients and solidified her hold on power. Around 300 people would attend, including local media. I spent the following week preparing legal documents with surgical precision: every form Rodrigo needed, every legal justification. Every piece of evidence meticulously organized. The law was crystal clear. We weren't just allowed to tow her car, we were obligated to once we knew about the violations. As whole members aware of illegal activity on common property, not acting would make us complicit. Karen's own rules demanded her downfall. The final piece fell into place when I discovered subsection 47C, paragraph 9. In cases of vehicles towed from common areas, the whole board president is personally liable for all fees, storage costs, and legal expenses if the vehicle was parked with their knowledge or consent. Since Karen couldn't claim ignorance of her own parking, she would be personally responsible for every cent. With Rodriguez Recovery's premium rates for illegal parking impounds $500 hook fee, $200 daily storage, and administrative costs, her Mercedes would rack up bills so high they would make her mortgage look manageable. Rodrigo and I met at his yard to plan the operation, surrounded by the hum of tow trucks and the smell of diesel. "We'll do this clean," he said, patting his truck's hood. "Cameras rolling, paperwork perfect, by the absolute letter of the law." When she screams lawsuit, I want to hand her the statute she wrote herself. We rehearsed the approach angles, the fastest hookup method, and the precise route to avoid any legal ambiguity. This wasn't revenge, it was law enforcement. The fact that it would happen at her gala, in front of everyone she'd terrorized, and with news cameras she'd invited, well, that was just karma with perfect timing. Our revolution began in my garage, which smelled of motor oil and righteous fury. Within a week, it had become the unofficial headquarters of the anti-Karen resistance, complete with whiteboards, laptops, and enough coffee to fuel a small country. The alliance grew faster than blackmailed in a negligent landlord's property. 12 households officially on board, with more joining every day as word spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Ethel Morrison became our undercover ally, keeping up the appearance of a harmless elderly woman while gathering intel like a senior version of James Bond. "Karen trusts me because I bring her zucchini bread," she said, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "She has no idea I've been recording every word she says about dealing with problem neighbors." Joe Patel, a forensic accountant by profession and HOA victim by circumstance, had spent 3 weeks analyzing the financial records with the focus of someone who'd been fined $500 for having the wrong shade of beige on their mailbox. The Johnsons, a tech-savvy couple Karen had harassed over their solar panels, handled our digital evidence, creating a secure cloud server they named Karen Leaks. The real game changer was Mike Brennan, our mailman of 15 years, who'd watched Karen rummage through mail slots like a raccoon with a real estate license. "The federal postal inspectors have been waiting for a case like this," Mike told me over a beer in my garage. "Mail theft by an HOA official. That's Christmas morning for them. I've been documenting every complaint, taking pictures of tampered boxes. Your girl's looking at federal charges." He'd already filed his reports and was just waiting for the signal to escalate. My lawyer, Gary Chen, who'd offered a free consultation after Karen tried to find him for his ethnically inappropriate coupon, outlined our legal strategy with military precision. First, we filed the whole records request and forced them to produce everything. Then, we hit them with the survey error, the financial audit demand, and a compilation of false reports to various agencies. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, all perfectly legal. He'd already drafted 17 different motions, each one a targeted strike at Karen's stronghold. The best part was that HOA bylaws required them to cover the legal fees for any member request that uncovered board malfeasance. We spent our nights preparing. We installed hidden cameras at strategic points, all on private property and perfectly legal, creating a surveillance network that would make any casino envious. The Johnsons wrote a program that synced all footage with timestamps, creating an indisputable record of Karen's every move. Rodrigo supplied GPS trackers for the tow trucks, ensuring perfect documentation of the route from the gala to the impound lot. If she claims we damaged her car or took anything, we'll have video from 16 angles proving otherwise, he said, installing his 7th dashcam. Dad turned our operation into a military exercise, complete with code names and synchronized watches. He rallied 5 other veterans from the VA Center, all with their own stories of Karen's harassment. He called it Operation Toe Freedom, sketching out attack plans as if he were back in tactical ops. His contribution was simple but brilliant, a phone tree capable of mobilizing 40 witnesses in 10 minutes. When that Mercedes gets hooked, he said, I want everyone with a camera phone recording. Multiple angles, undeniable proof. Deborah, still on bed rest but sharp as ever, became our intelligence analyst. Look at this pattern, she said, laptop perched on her pregnant belly, showing me charts that looked like something out of an FBI briefing. Karen's violations cluster around the 1st and 15th of the month. She's using fines as an income supplement. She's identified 23 households hit with suspicious fines just before her mortgage payments are due. It's a shakedown disguised as community standards. Her teacher's knack for organization had turned into a database that would make prosecutors weep with joy. 3 nights before the gala, we held our final strategy meeting. 43 people crammed into my garage, sharing stories that would horrify anyone who believed in basic decency. The Korean family she'd reported for suspicious gatherings, family dinners. The black veteran she'd called the cops on for loitering while checking his own mail. The elderly Jewish couple fined for their unapproved door modification. Every story fueled our resolve. This wasn't just about my family anymore. This was about everyone who'd been steamrolled by a petty tyrant with a clipboard. Remember, I told the group, everything we do is legal, documented, and justified. We're not vigilantes. We're citizens enforcing our own bylaws when the president won't. When that tow truck arrives, I want calm, legal, peaceful observation. Let Karen be the one who loses control, because she will. The room buzzed with anticipation, like the electric charge before a lightning strike. Everyone knew their role, their position, and their timing. We had turned Karen's own weapon against her: organization, documentation, and ruthless adherence to rules. The gala was in 72 hours. The trap was set with the precision of a Swiss watch. Karen thought she was attending her annual coronation. Instead, she was about to become the star of her own public execution, directed by the very people she'd terrorized, produced by the laws she'd written, and broadcast for everyone who mattered to see. Rodrigo had already cleared his schedule, his best driver on standby, and the truck polished until it gleamed like justice itself. We were ready. Karen just didn't know it yet. 3 days before the gala, Karen must have sensed danger, the way animals sense earthquakes. She launched a counterattack that would have impressed Patton. It began when I found my truck up on blocks, all four tires slashed with surgical precision. The security footage showed a figure in black at 3 o'clock a.m., but conveniently, spray paint had covered 3 of my 4 cameras just minutes before. The 4th camera, hidden in a birdhouse Deborah had made at summer camp 20 years ago, captured everything in crystal clear detail, including Karen's unmistakable French manicure gripping the knife. She's escalating, Dad remarked, inspecting the damage like a seasoned investigator. I've seen this in combat. When rats feel cornered, they lash out. The tires were only $100 to $200 to replace, but the insurance claim would be interesting. How do you explain that the whole president committed felony vandalism? Then came the call from my top client, Marcus. I'm sorry, but we've decided to go with another contractor. We received some disturbing information about your business practices. The disturbing information was an anonymous blog titled The Truth About Castellano Construction, filled with photoshopped images suggesting non-existent code violations and safety hazards. The blog was hosted on the HOA's official server, a detail Karen must have forgotten while engaging in cyber defamation. The Johnsons traced the IP address to whole meetings, timed to when Karen would have been present. She had literally defamed me using whole resources during official meetings, adding wire fraud to her growing list of felonies. But the real shock came when 5 more clients called within 2 days, each canceling contracts worth over $200,000 combined. She was trying to bankrupt me before the gala. Rodrigo called Wednesday night, his voice tight with controlled anger. Someone offered me $5,000 to refuse any tow calls from Pine Valley Estates this weekend. Yes. And traceable, very professional. He'd recorded the entire conversation on his phone. including the part where the caller mentioned the consequences of noncompliance. The thing is, Herman, they called from the HOA office line. Caller ID doesn't lie. We added witness tampering and bribery to Karen's criminal list, which was starting to look like a textbook on criminal justice. Thursday brought the harshest blow yet. Deborah called me from the school, sobbing. "Marcus, someone called CPS again. They pulled both kids out of class, questioned them about our home life, asked if mommy and daddy ever hurt them, if they felt safe, if there were drugs in the house. Our babies are terrified." The investigator, though apologetic, was thorough. The report had included specific details that required investigation. I raced to the school, only to find my 8-year-old son crying, asking why the lady wanted to know if daddy hit mommy. My 6-year-old daughter kept repeating that she promised we were good parents. That's when something inside me snapped. But it was a cold snap, the kind that turns coal into diamonds. I called Jim Martinez, the CPS investigator who'd given me his card. "It's happening again," I said flatly. "Same false reporter?" he asked, his voice hardening. "Same pattern, same timing, just before a major HOA event where we plan to expose financial crimes." There was a pause. "Then file a police report immediately. I'll add my statement about the pattern of false reports. This is witness intimidation using state resources. The DA takes that very seriously." He was right. Karen had crossed the line from civil harassment into criminal activity. The detective who took our report was an HOA victim himself. "Let me guess," he said, glancing at our pile of evidence. "The president runs it like her personal kingdom. Selective enforcement, targeting anyone who questions them. My own HOA sued me for having the wrong type of grass. He made sure to document everything, especially the cybercrimes blog posts posted during HOA meetings using HOA servers. That's embezzlement of services and wire fraud. Federal prosecutors love wire fraud. It's their bread and butter." But Karen reserved her ultimate move for Friday morning, just 24 hours before the gala. I was reviewing final preparations when Ethel called, breathless with urgency. "Emergency HOA board meeting in 1 hour. Karen's trying to pass new bylaws. She wants to ban recording devices at all HOA events, prevent members from hiring tow services without board approval, and make it illegal to gather in groups larger than 4 on HOA property." She was literally trying to pass laws to protect herself from the consequences of her actions. The meeting was a circus of desperation. Karen presided like a dictator sensing a revolution, her makeup slightly smeared, her voice unnaturally high. "These measures are necessary to protect our community from organized harassment," she stammered, reading from notes. The 4 board members shifted uncomfortably as 40-plus homeowners filled the small room. When Karen called for an immediate vote without discussion, breaking Robert's rules of order, Dr. Patel stood up. "Point of order, Madam President. Bylaws require a 30-day notice for any voting measure." Page 47, Section 3. Karen's face cycled from red to purple. "I'm invoking emergency powers for community safety." "What emergency?" Ethel asked innocently. "The gala tomorrow," Karen stammered. "That's been planned for months." The board voted down all 3 measures, for 2-1, with only Karen supporting her own coup. Even her wine club allies could smell the desperation as the meeting descended into chaos. Karen made one final announcement: anyone who disrupts tomorrow's gala will be prosecuted for trespassing. Gary Chen, our lawyer, stood with calm theatricality. "Actually, Karen, the gala is a public HOA event on common property. Every dues-paying member has equal right to attend and document." Page 15, Section 8 of the bylaws. "You wrote them yourself." She fled the meeting like her hair was on fire, but not before I saw something in her eyes that confirmed everything: pure, undiluted fear. She knew we had something planned, but not what. The unknown was eating her alive. That night, our group chat buzzed with updates: cameras charged, positions confirmed, witnesses ready. The news crew covering the community gala had been tipped about potential drama. Rodrigo's truck was polished and positioned just 5 minutes away. Everything was set for Saturday night's show. Karen had spent weeks blindly attacking, but tomorrow, we'd shine a light on it all. Saturday morning came with Karen's final, most brutal assault, a full-fledged character assassination that could have impressed Stalin. I woke to 17 missed calls and a text from my brother in New Jersey. Why is there a blog saying you're under investigation for elder abuse? The anonymous blog, Pine Valley Truth, had gone viral overnight. It included photos of my father appearing frail, twisted captions implying neglect, and fabricated statements from concerned neighbors about the supposed dangers in our home. The clincher was a doctored image of my dad lying on the floor, made from a legitimate photo where he was doing physical therapy exercises. But in her rage, Karen had made a crucial mistake. She had included specific medical details about my dad's prescriptions, information that only someone who'd illegally accessed his mail could know. The blog post not only spread lies but also provided evidence of federal crimes while attempting to pin state-level ones on me. My phone rang incessantly as clients, friends, and family saw the viral falsehoods. Deborah's blood pressure shot up so high that her doctor threatened immediate hospitalization. She's trying to induce labor before tonight, Deborah panted through contractions. She knows we won't leave if I'm in the hospital. By noon, things had escalated far beyond Karen's usual malicious antics. The doorbell rang, and two police officers stood at the threshold, here for a welfare check on my father. Behind them, I saw Karen's Mercedes parked across the street, her figure visible behind tinted windows like a vulture waiting for its prey. We received reports of screaming and signs of violence, said the younger officer, hand resting near his weapon. Dad wheeled himself to the door with military precision. Officers, I'm Anthony Castellano, retired staff sergeant, Purple Heart recipient. The only violence here is against the truth. What followed was poetic karma. The older officers studied my dad's face and then broke into smiles. Tony Castellano. Holy hell, you saved my uncle's life in '71. Jimmy Morrison from the 25th Infantry. They embraced like brothers long lost to time, while Karen, watching her false report unravel, could only witness the reunion she had never intended. Officer Morrison took detailed notes about the bogus report, muttering about people who waste police resources when real crimes are happening. As they left, he handed me his card. When you catch whoever's behind this, call me. False reports delayed my partner's response time to a real domestic. This costs lives. The afternoon brought a surprising twist. Richard Stanton, Karen's husband, appeared at my door, looking like someone who had just discovered his wife's dark side. I'm done covering for her, he said, handing me a thumb drive. She's ruined our finances, our reputation, and our marriage. That drive has everything. His hands shook as he spoke. She promised it was just about protecting property values. I didn't know she was evil. The thumb drive was a treasure trove for prosecutors. It contained screenshots of whole bank accounts showing transfers to Karen's personal shopping sprees, emails planning coordinated harassment campaigns, and most damning of all, a spreadsheet tracking neighbors to target based on race, religion, and military status, with comments like Mexicans lower property values and too many Asians on Oak Street. She documented her own hate crimes with the precision of a Nazi accountant. But the crown jewel was an audio file. Karen, drunk at a wine club meeting, boasting about running out the undesirable and making Pine Valley pure again. At 4 p.m., Dr. Patel called an emergency meeting. 47 homeowners packed into my garage, which now smelled of justice and resolve. I've completed the forensic audit. The room was filled with a controlled rage. The Korean family revealed that Karen had cost them $30,000 in legal fees to contest fabricated violations. The black veteran shared medical bills for heart problems caused by the stress. The Jewish couple calculated a $50,000 loss in property value from her relentless harassment. Altogether, we were seeking over $400,000 in damages, not including the emotional toll. Gary Chen stood like a judge delivering a verdict. Tonight, we're not just towing a car, we're delivering justice. Every camera, every witness, every document counts. She's headed for prison, but first, she'll be exposed. As the meeting concluded, Dad wheeled up to me with military-like focus. Logistics update. Perfect weather, no rain to affect the cameras. Mike confirmed 3 news crews are coming. Rodrigo is in position with a backup truck in case she tries to flee. Ethel's inside, and reports Karen plans to arrive at 7:45 for maximum dramatic effect. He handed me a checklist, efficiency in his every move. Oh, and son, your grandmother would be proud. Rosa always said the best revenge is served legally with many witnesses. The sun was setting on Karen's reign. In 2 hours, she would make her grand entrance to the gala in her white Mercedes, expecting admiration and luxury. What she didn't expect was 47 homeowners with cameras, a tow truck waiting for her car, and enough legal paperwork to cover a federal prison. The blog posts, false reports, and intimidation tactics were the desperate flailing of a dictator who felt a revolution on the horizon. Tonight, that revolution would be broadcast, uploaded, and shared across every HOA in the country as a warning. You can only push good people so far before they push back with the Constitution, criminal laws, and a legally operating tow truck. Karen thought she was untouchable. In 90 minutes, she would learn the stark difference between untouchable and intouchable in prison. The Pine Valley Estates annual gala began at 7 p.m. in the community center, now transformed with fairy lights and white tablecloths into Karen's personal throne room. 3 news crews mingled with 300 residents, expecting a fluff piece on community unity. They had no idea they were about to witness one of the most explosive HOA meetings in YouTube history. I stood near the entrance with Dad, both of us in our best suits, watching Ethel work the crowd like a secret agent in pearls, sending updates through our group text. At 7:43, Karen's white Mercedes appeared, gliding through the parking lot like a shark fin cutting through dark waters. She had parked in the fire lane directly in front of the entrance, maximum visibility for her entrance, and maximum illegality for us. The universe delivered perfection when she spent 3 minutes adjusting her makeup in the mirror, giving us plenty of time to get the cameras ready. Through the tinted glass, we saw her practicing her smile, unaware that 47 phones were already recording her final crime. She stepped out of the Mercedes like she was walking the red carpet, wearing a $5,000 sequin dress that glittered like her delusions of grandeur. Her perfume arrived 5 seconds before she did, a mix of Chanel No. 5 and unshakable arrogance. She breezed past the no parking fire lane sign as if it were a red carpet marker, her heels clicking on the concrete in a rhythm that screamed, "I own this place." Behind her, the Mercedes sat illegally, its expired registration sticker in plain view, one tire touching the yellow fire lane paint, a detail Rodrigo would later call poetic justice. Inside, Karen worked the room with calculated precision, air-kissing potential clients and accepting compliments like a queen receiving tribute. The news cameras captured her holding court, blissfully unaware of the revolution unfolding just outside. At 8:15, Dr. Patel took the microphone for the evening's special presentation. Karen sat in the front row, anticipating praise, but instead, the projection screen lit up with HOA financial records that left the audience gasping. "Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Patel said with the calm of a prosecutor, I present 8 years of systematic embezzlement, totaling $247,000 in stolen HOA funds." The screen displayed receipts, Karen's Vegas trips billed as board retreats, her Mercedes payments recorded as community vehicle maintenance, and her wine collection listed as meeting refreshments. The crowd's murmur grew louder and then erupted with outrage as each slide revealed more corruption. Karen's smug expression quickly shifted to shock, then to pure rage, her sequins trembling with fury. "This is illegal," she shrieked, leaping up so fast that her wine glass shattered on the floor. "You can't access those records without board approval." Gary Chen stood smoothly, holding up documents. "Actually, we can," he said. "Page 73 of the bylaws you wrote states that any 5 members can demand an emergency financial review if fraud is suspected. We have 47 signatures." The news cameras shifted between Karen and the screen, like they were filming a tennis match in hell. That's when Ethel's text hit our phones, "Showtime." Through the windows, Rodrigo's flatbed tow truck appeared, its emergency lights casting a red and blue glow on the building. Carlos, Rodrigo's best driver and an ex-Marine, expertly positioned the truck. The crowd rushed to the windows, phones raised. Karen stood frozen, her mind struggling to comprehend the scene unfolding outside. "That's my car," she screamed, shoving through the crowd in her designer heels. "You can't do this." "I'm the president." She charged through the doors only to find Carlos calmly attaching the wheel. Lift. Every movement deliberate and legal. Rodrigo stood nearby with a clipboard, documenting everything. "Ma'am," he said, "this vehicle is illegally parked in a fire lane on HOA common property with expired registration, per HOA bylaws section 47C and State Statute 28-4839. We are authorized to impound." The news crews followed the drama outside, capturing Karen's meltdown in stunning detail. She grabbed Carlos's arm, assault on camera, kicked the tow truck, property damage on camera. She screamed obscenities that would ruin any real estate career. The audio quality was broadcast ready. "I know people," she screamed. "I'll have your business destroyed. You spics don't know who you're messing with." The racial slur hung in the air like a bad smell in a church. 300 people heard it. 3 news crews recorded it. The black reporter from Channel 7 turned to his cameraman. "Tell me you got that." He nodded, zooming in on Karen's face as she realized the magnitude of her words. Her real estate career ended in that moment, preserved in 4K resolution. But the universe had one last twist in store. As Carlos finished securing the Mercedes, a white sedan with official plates pulled up. 2 figures emerged, a sheriff's deputy and a man in a suit holding federal credentials. The postal inspector Mike promised, I thought, arriving with perfect timing, like divine intervention. "Karen Whitmore Stanton," the deputy called out. "We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of mail theft, wire fraud, and making false reports to Child Protective Services." The crowd gasped in unison, a collective moment of catharsis. Karen tried to flee in her sequin dress and heels, managing exactly 4 steps before tripping on her own arrogance and face-planting into a decorative bush. The deputy helped her up, the handcuffs gleaming in the gala lights. "You have the right to remain silent," he began, as every phone streamed the Miranda rights to Facebook Live. "Marcus," she screamed, mascara streaming down her face like toxic rivers. "You did this. You destroyed everything." I stepped forward, Dad rolling beside me, and delivered the line I had been practicing for weeks. "No, Karen, you did this. We just made sure everyone saw it." The crowd erupted in applause, drowning out her shrill screams, as the deputy guided her to the patrol car. Her husband, Richard, emerged with a process server. "Karen, you're being served," he said, handing her divorce papers through the window. "And before you ask, yes, I'm keeping the house. Check the prenup clause about criminal convictions." The expression on her face, captured from 17 different angles, was a masterpiece of real-time karma. The Mercedes was hauled away on Rodrigo's flatbed just as Karen was driven into the patrol car. 2 symbols of false power were removed simultaneously. The news crews scrambled for interviews, but the story was already writing itself. HOA president arrested at gala after towing incident exposes years of crimes. Within an hour, #IaneHoran was trending nationwide. The revolution wasn't just televised, it went viral, reaching 2 million views before midnight. Justice had been served, with a side of public humiliation, garnished with federal charges, and live-streamed for the world to see. The dictator had fallen, and Pine Valley Estates was finally free. The emergency HOA election took place right there in the community center. Democracy rising from the ashes of Karen's empire as the news crews continued filming. Ethel Morrison won by acclamation, with no dissenting votes. Her first act as president was to motion for the reversal of all fines issued in the past 8 years pending review. The motion passed unanimously. Just like that, $400,000 in predatory fines evaporated, and you could hear the collective sigh of relief. Within a week, the story exploded beyond our wildest expectations. The footage of Karen's arrest reached 2.3 million views. spawning 1,000 memes and becoming a warning to HOA tyrants across the country. The Postal Inspector's investigation uncovered that Karen had committed mail theft across 3 states. Following the trail of devastated neighborhoods she left behind, the federal prosecutor, a woman who had clearly been waiting her entire career for a case like this, charged Karen with 47 counts, including wire fraud and civil rights violations. The plea deal spared taxpayers a trial, sentencing her to 2 years in federal prison, 3 years of probation, and a $300,000 in restitution. She was also permanently banned from serving on any HOA board, nonprofit, or community organization, effectively taking away her power as though removing Voldemort's wand. Pine Valley Estates underwent a transformation, like watching a garden bloom after eradicating weeds. Under Ethel's leadership, we implemented radical transparency. Financial records were posted online, we held monthly town halls. And every fine now required a majority vote from residents. The Korean family cultivated a beautiful cultural garden where Karen once illegally parked. The Patels hosted Diwali celebrations that illuminated the entire neighborhood. Dad started a weekly veteran support group at the community center, no longer fearing harassment for hosting unauthorized events. My business not only recovered but thrived. Turns out, being the guy who took down a corrupt HOA president was the best marketing strategy, far better than any billboard. Clients specifically called to request the contractor who stood up to Karen, and my calendar was booked for 18 months. Deborah safely gave birth to our daughter, Victoria. Yes, we named her after our victory, and she arrived with perfect timing 2 weeks after Karen was placed in federal custody. Even Richard Stanton became a client, hiring me to renovate the house he won in the divorce. "Least I can do," he said, handing me the check. And I'm dating Dr. Patel's sister now. Life's funny that way. The ripple effects of our victory spread beyond Pine Valley. Our story inspired 3 other neighborhoods to investigate their own HOA letters, uncovering similar corruption. A state legislator who lived just 2 streets over introduced Karen's Law, which required HOA financial transparency and limited presidential power. I testified at the state capitol, sharing our story with lawmakers who actually listened. The bill passed 97-3, proving that standing up to one bully can protect countless future victims. 6 months later, I received a letter that made everything worthwhile. It was from Karen's daughter, who had been estranged from her mother ever since Karen reported her Hispanic boyfriend to ICE. "Thank you," she wrote. "My mother's arrest freed our family from her reign of terror. I'm in law school now, studying housing discrimination law. The HOA scholarship helped me pay for tuition." Ironic, right? We had established the Rosa Castellano Memorial Scholarship using the recovered HOA funds, specifically for students fighting housing discrimination. Karen's stolen money now funded the lawyers who would prevent future Karens, poetic justice at its finest, a year after the rest. Pine Valley Estates held its first annual Freedom from Tyranny Festival. The smell of barbecue replaced the stench of fear. Children played in bounce houses where Karen's Mercedes once blocked driveways. Neighbors socialized without worrying about violations. Dad manned the grill, telling more stories and HOA battle tales. Ethel, our 83-year-old president, worked the crowd like a beloved grandmother, a role she had taken on for half the neighborhood. The festival had a special guest, Jim Martinez, the CPS investigator who helped expose Karen's false reports. He led a workshop on recognizing harassment disguised as concern, empowering families to fight back against weaponized bureaucracy. "What happened here," he told the crowd, "should be taught in every civics class. You proved that ordinary citizens can stand up to corruption and win." I found Rodrigo by the beer tent, his tow truck parked nearby with a sign that read, "The truck that towed tyranny of photos, $5, benefits Veterans Center." By afternoon, we'd raised $3,000. "Best tow of my career," he grinned, clinking beers, though I heard Karen's now working at a mall kiosk, selling phone cases. She tried to cite a customer for having the wrong brand. We laughed, though it was tinged with pity. Some people never learn. As sunset painted the sky, I stood with Deborah and our kids, watching our neighbors celebrate their newfound freedom. Dad rolled up with baby Victoria on his lap, both wearing matching whole survivor t-shirts that Ethel had made. "You know," he said, surveying the scene, "your grandmother would have loved this. Rosa always said, the best revenge against bullies is a life well lived in spite of them." He was right. We had won more than just a battle against a corrupt HOA president. We had built a community that looked out for each other, celebrated differences instead of finding them, and understood that the true meaning of home values had nothing to do with property prices but everything to do with human dignity. "Hey, everyone!" I called out, raising my beer. "Got a horror story about your hole? Drop it in the comments. The worst one gets featured in next week's video. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, because next time, we're exposing the racist HOA that tried to ban American flags. In the end, the very rules she worshipped became the chains that dragged her to federal prison. And that, my friends, is how you make a Karen's car anchor disappear for good. Thank you for tuning into HOA Stories, where neighbors stand up against HOA Karens, and karma comes knocking. If you like this story, hit that like button, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more HOA tales and real-life neighborhood drama each week.